What's up, guys? Just got my new cat. It's pretty cool. What the?
Hello everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new video in which we are gonna talk about my top 5 worst tier 10 tanks. The tanks that, when you ask me to play them, I'm never happy, let's face it. And on this list, we can start with the WZ121B. And I'm gonna explain to you why I think this tank deserves its place in this top. If you know, you might know or might not know that because nearly nobody's playing the 121B, but in the Chinese tech tree we have two medium tanks at tier 10. The WZ121 that you can actually research by grinding the line, and the 121B, which is the premium version featuring a 105mm gun which is gonna do 350 alpha damage. If we compare both tanks, they are equally the same on the mobility, on the armor, but not the gun. We all know the main problem of the Chinese is their gun depression. This tank is not an exception, and also their high alpha damage. That is what makes these tanks worth it on the battlefield. If you remove that special effect that the WZ121 has, and you replace it with a lower gun, you have the 121B. What's the point of playing this tank when you have the WZ121 that does everything better with a better alpha damage? That's why this tank is in the list, and that's also why I don't like it. Number 4, the VK7201K. I'm gonna tell you why I hate this tank. When it was first introduced, or at least when Wargaming started talking about this tank, I was really expecting it to be a side scrape god, like something you can't really penetrate on the turret cheeks or nowhere else, and that would be a little bit of a fresh air considering the E100 and the mouse can be penetrated quite easily on their turret cheeks. So I was really having high expectations regarding this tank because of that. I thought finally Wargaming understood that we need a German tier 10 heavy that can actually side scrape without the fear of being penetrated quite easily while doing it. Oh boy, was I deceived. And I think everybody got deceived, because when you take a look at the armor profile, not only can you penetrate the turret cheeks nearby the gun with gold shells and sometimes even without gold shells, but you can actually penetrate the side hull with gold and regular shells, which makes the purpose of this tank totally worthless. If you have a turret at the back, it means you're made for side scraping. With this tank, if you side scrape, you are gonna get penetrated by people that can actually go through your hull armor. So what's the point? What is the point of playing that tank? There is none, literally. If you have the VK9001P, you can already sell this tank because the VK9001P can actually side scrape, which is definitely not the case of this one. That's why it's in this top, and that's why I don't like it. Number 3, the Batchat 25 tons. Let me explain myself, because I know a lot of people actually enjoy that tank. There are two things I really hate about it. The fact that it has an auto-loader, and the fact that it has a bad gun elevation. The gun elevation is a nightmare because it will restrain you into taking advanced position, because as soon as you need some gun elevation, you are out of the game and you will not be able to do anything. That's what is really frustrating when you're playing with this tank. Also, the autoloader, I hate. Having autoloaders on light tanks is worthless in my opinion, and I'm gonna tell you why. What is the purpose of a light tank on the battlefield? It's spotting, and sometimes from time to time it's sneaking from its position to sneak a shot. We agree on that. With the Batchat, as you have an autoloader, you need to poke 3 times to unleash all your clip on your enemies. If you don't unleash all your shells from a clip and you only shoot 1 time and go back to your position and reload, you're gonna take ages to do damage, which is not the case, for example, of the Vickers Light, which is in my opinion way better, because with the Vickers Light you are actually way more flexible because you don't have this auto-loader. So if I had to choose between out of all the tier 10 light, the Batchat would be the worst. That's why it's in this top. I don't like the tank. It might be, I think I'm the problem, because the tank overall is not bad at all, but it definitely doesn't fit my playstyle, and it's really restraining when you have an autoloader being a light tank, because you will not be able to burst all your shells before taking a shot or before anybody notices you. Number 2, the FV215B183. Okay, I get it, haha, that's funny, 1.2k damage with hash shell, OP, yeah, okay, if you want. That's funny, I agree with you. But for one hash shell going in, how many did you miss? Or how many did you bounce, doing only splash damage? That's exactly what I hate about this tank. Not that the tank overall is bad, but it's really frustrating to play, to the point I never play it. It's literally taking dust in my garage, except in streams when people want me to play it. I hate that tank because of its gun dispersion. 0.43 is way too much. I would actually love for Wargaming to maybe lower it down a little bit, because I feel like the tank now is overpowered. That's probably what Wargaming intended to do, because this tank is pretty cancer at tier 10. For example, look at this E100, 1.4k damage. Yeah, it's cancer. But now it's not worth playing anymore. We have way better tank destroyers in the game, and I think this tank is left behind simply because we all know it's frustrating, and even if it's funny to play it, you really hate when you're against it and when it penetrates you with hash, let's not lie here. And that's why, in my opinion, the fact that it makes it frustrating makes it good to talk about in this top. That's why in this top 5 of the worst tank, we're talking about this one. And finally, for me, the worst tier 10 you could ever get, the tier 10 tank destroyer from the German nation, the Jagdpanzer E100. I hate that tank for several reasons, but the main one is the mobility. Because the gun is nice, for real. The gun allows you to snapshots, it's an amazing one, great penetration, great alpha damage, great gun dispersion. But the main problem is the freaking mobility. It's awful. It's either your team is really strong, they push at the beginning and you're left behind because they're gonna kill everybody before you manage to get into the battlefield, or your team is so bad that they will die before you join the battlefield, and after that people are gonna rush at you and kill you. The mobility is so awful. I wish Wargaming could apply the same buff to the Jagdpanzer E100 that they did on the T10s E3 concerning its mobility. Because if they don't do that, this tank is made to be left behind. Nobody actually really likes to play it because it's awful. Even the armor profile, I mean, it's supposed to be one of the most armored tanks at tier 10. And most armored tanks should mean a tank that will make you, or at least make enemies bounce. It's definitely not the case. I mean, your armor is straight everywhere. It's really squared, and as it's squared, it's way too easy to go through with gold shells. You see a Jagdpanzer, you think, okay, it has an amazing armor. You just have to load shells, and this amazing armor transforms into some kind of cheese that you can easily penetrate. Let's face it. This tank is the fleshlight of gold shells. Actually, that's a pretty good description. I'm proud of me on this one. But yeah, this tank really is awful because of this. This video is now over. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, like and share, and tell me in the comments your top 5 worst tier 10 tanks. I'm curious about this, just to see if my picks were something everybody thinks overall, or if I'm totally different and left behind with my opinion. So feel free to tell me in the comments, and I'm gonna see you soon for a new video, guys.